My Returnal adventure began with protagonist Celine Vassos crashing on the alien planet Atropos. As she crawled out of the wreckage, I was immediately struck by my surroundings. This alien world reminded me of the Alien film franchise. Those movies don't own the Xeno prefix, but it's hard not to think of the Xenomorph when I read it. Plus, you've got little parasitic spider creatures that live in these purple pods, and some of the enemies give me H.R. Giger vibes.
I love that stuff, it's so dark.
I had already talked about the Alien movies in my Bugsnax video, so I put those ideas aside. And then I started seeing a lot of other influences.
Wait, so we're not gonna talk about Giger stuff? Ah, that sucks.
Relax, kid. There are plenty of other games to talk about. And it turns out most of them come from the same developer. Before Returnal, developer Housemarque crafted a bunch of twin-stick shooters like Super Stardust, Resogun, and Matterfall. When we trace this lineage, we can see a clear line of evolution that leads us to the awesome PS5 game that is Returnal. So, what kind of game is Returnal? Well, it's a few things. It's a culmination of ideas from Housemarque's previous twin-stick shooters, but it's a third-person shooter with roguelike elements, as you will repeatedly die and restart Celine's expedition, losing most of your resources each time. There's also a dash of Metroid in there, not just in the themes of an alien planet, but also in the permanent power-ups you acquire. Thematically, Returnal is about discovery, so in the interest of keeping this video spoiler-free, I'm only going to use footage from the first two biomes, and I won't be discussing the plot.
Spoilers are lame anyway.
You're not wrong. In any case, let's talk about the games Housemarque created before Returnal. Super Stardust has seen many releases over the decades, but we'll start our journey with Super Stardust HD, the 2007 PS3 version. You can tell the kind of game it is at a glance. Fly around, shoot space debris, don't get hit. Let's take some John Madden-style notes while we watch. Note that you move independently of where you shoot, and you can boost away from trouble with a dash if need be. Note the variety of weapon types, the flamethrower, the green energy bullets, the area-clearing bomb, and note the shots being fired back at you, balls of pink energy and homing missiles. This is all quintessential twin-stick shooter stuff. Now let's fast forward to 2013, when Housemarque launched Resogun alongside the PlayStation 4. You'll see a lot of the same things here, firing in different directions, the dash, the bomb, the shots coming back at you. The chief difference is that it takes place on a cylindrical level, where Super Stardust HD was set on a sphere. Jump ahead another few years to 2017, and we've got Matterfall. Again, you'll recognize a lot of the gameplay elements. You're shooting in all directions, dashing to avoid enemy fire, all of those things. But you'll see the major difference immediately. This is a platformer. You've got boots on the ground instead of a ship in the air. The DNA of the twin-stick shooters that came before is clear, but now it's in a new context. Then we arrive in 2021, and Returnal makes its debut on PS5. Once again, the biggest difference in this new game is immediately clear. Everything we saw before this operated in 2 dimensions. Even on the sphere of Super Stardust or the cylinder of Resogun, your inputs are limited to the X and Y axes, but in Returnal, you have full range of motion for X, Y, and now Z. It's a new dimension for a Housemarque game, but the same gameplay elements are present. You'll notice Celine's mobility as soon as you lean on the thumbstick. She bolts across the stages with serious speed before you've even activated her sprint. You can run, jump, and strafe in all directions, independently aiming your gun at various targets. Yes, there's even a dash that grants you protection as you slip right through enemy fire. If we take a closer look at the enemy, we'll see the similarities are even more explicit than you might think. Some enemies are mobile, like these tentacle dogs, while others plant in one spot and fire away, like turrets. You can see the same enemy types in Housemarque's other shooters, movers that chase you down, and immobile enemies that only attack when you're in range.
Multiplier up.
It's not just the presence of these enemy types, but also the patterns in their attacks that we see reflected in Returnal. Its most basic enemy is the Kerberon, which I've colloquially called the tentacle dog, that spits out a wave of blue orbs that move in a single direction. Compare that to these turrets in Resogun. They may fire more frequently, but the pattern is the same. The same style of turret fire appears in Matterfall, which is also where we see these vertical lasers. Sadly, they're not destructible in Returnal, but you will definitely be dodging a lot of them if you want to pick up all the items you come across. These various patterns are referred to as bullet hell, which means lots of bullets on screen, be they energy bursts, shockwaves, missiles, or something even more wild that you have to avoid. Returnal sprinkles in some really cool looking ones, like the square that this flying enemy fires. And of course, you have your own variety of weapons to fire back with. From your basic pistol, to rocket launchers, to weird alien tech that lobs acid. Weapon variety has been a staple of Housemarque's games over the years, and just as you can drop a screen-clearing bomb in those, the guns in Returnal have ultimate attacks too. You can drop a similar bomb that damages enemies in the area, fire a void beam that drains enemy health, or emit a burst of lightning, as just a few examples. In this way, Returnal's alt fire is really more of an ult fire.
Are you gonna be doing dumb wordplay like that this entire time?
I usually do. Now, another key component of Housemarque's games is the score. Not the music, but the high score, that ever-increasing number that motivates you to get more and more points with each run. The key to a good score is building up your multiplier. The more enemies you take out and power-ups you grab without getting hit, the higher it goes. Returnal has exactly this with its daily challenges, where you can compete for a high score against other astronauts online. But how do you incentivize keeping a combo going in the regular story mode, when there is no score? Returnal answers that question with the adrenaline system. Get 3 kills without taking damage, and you'll get a bigger window for your weapon's active reload. Do it again, and you'll be able to see enemy pings behind walls and objects. Keep it up and you'll get a stronger melee attack, increased weapon proficiency, and extra money from every slain alien. So while there might not be a score to keep pushing up and up, there is still very much an incentive to keep a metaphorical multiplier going during your firefights. With the adrenaline system, the weapons of both you and your enemies, and Celine's speedy movement, Housemarque is able to capture the action of twin-stick shooting and transform it into a totally different game from what they've made before, making bullet hell feel heavenly fresh.
There it is again, wordplay.
Of course, games aren't made in a bubble, and Returnal isn't the first to reimagine these mechanics. Personally, I'm a big fan of the 2016 game Fury, which also had a fresh take on bullet hell. It's clear that Housemarque didn't just look to their own past when developing this game. They also looked to the side to see what else was out there. In a first for the studio, Returnal has heavy roguelike elements, and I think there are 2 particular characteristics that really stand out: permanent versus impermanent upgrades, and risk versus reward. To call back to another great roguelike from recent memory, let's briefly talk about Hades. During every underworld escape attempt, you get to choose boons from the gods. These can augment your attacks, boost a stat, or improve your chances of survival in other ways. But when Zagreus falls, all those power-ups are washed away in the river Styx, and you'll have to obtain new ones during your next run. The same goes for any gold you've obtained, but not any darkness you've collected. That's because gold is intended for purchasing impermanent items during a single run, while darkness allows you to collect permanent upgrades that stick with you forever. In Returnal, you can use fabricators to raise certain stats or collect artifacts, which give you perks like bonus damage and a better dash. Some fabricators give you these boosts for free, but most charge you obolites, which are little bits of golden rocks scattered across Atropos. If Celine succumbs to the aliens' attacks, the cycle restarts, and all of that is lost. However, if you manage to collect any ether during your expedition, that sticks around, just like Hades' Shards of Darkness. Ether can be used to unlock new item types, cleanse malignant items, and even activate machinery that gives you an extra life so you can continue your run after death. For the other part of this, we're going to revisit Loop Hero, another fantastic roguelike that came along just months before Returnal. I already have a video that goes into much deeper detail on this, but in short, that game is all about trade-offs. Every tile you place can be both a blessing and a curse, giving you a chance for new loot but inviting in additional enemies, or boosting some stats by reducing others. Everything you do leans into risk versus reward, forcing you to consider the costs and benefits of each decision. You have to do the same thing in Returnal. If you don't have Ether, you can still interact with malignant items if you wish, but opening a purple chest or collecting a tainted item can cause a malfunction. These can seriously hamper your progress, from reducing your attack to totally scrambling your map, and they require you to complete certain objectives to fix. You're not guaranteed to receive a malfunction every time, but the risk is there. Likewise, you have to consider the trade-off of every parasite. You can have several on your body at a time, but every single one comes with a positive and negative trait. It's not always wise to let one crawl onto you.
I have 7 pet tarantulas and 1 snake, so I can totally deal with a parasite on my arm.
These are just 2 examples of how Housemarque blended roguelike elements with its previous games to bring us Returnal. Impermanent items and boosts are lost at the end of a run, while some resources stick around. And with each new run, you must consider the risks and rewards of potential power-ups. That all helps to make each run feel different. But there's one more part of the design that really encourages you to go back and revisit each of the biomes, and that's the Metroidvania element. The term Metroidvania, a portmanteau of Metroid and Castlevania, is used to describe a game in which certain parts of the map are locked away until you acquire the necessary power-ups to reach them. Even though Returnal's biomes are random assortments of prefab rooms, there are still plenty of spots you simply can't access until you get the necessary gear. To call out the Metroid half of Metroidvania, let's talk about Samus Aran's power-ups. One of the first in just about every one of her games is the ability to launch missiles. These not only deal heavy damage to enemies, but they also open special doors. In Returnal's case, you get a melee weapon, the Atropian Blade. This sword not only deals heavy damage to enemies, but it also opens special doors. To take it one step further, Samus also has access to super missiles, which amplify her abilities even more. And in Returnal, getting the Blade Balancer artifact means you can cut through not just red shields, but orange ones too. Samus also gets a handy grapple beam on most of her adventures. Celine picks up the Icarian Grapnel in the second biome, which serves the same purpose. The hookshot gets you to all sorts of ledges you couldn't reach before, giving you a reason to return to earlier biomes to explore even deeper. You can find new items, weapons, and bits of lore if you do. The DNA from games like Super Stardust HD, Resogun, and Matterfall is clear. Returnal evolved from Housemarque's previous twin-stick shooters in several ways, translating elements like mobility and weapon patterns into a 3D space. Borrowing roguelike mechanics from other games in that genre helped take Returnal in a new direction, one where multiple playthroughs are encouraged. And to further encourage them, exploratory elements from games like Metroid were added in, so if you are stuck in an older area, you at least have new toys to play with. Altogether, these ingredients blend to make a very tasty recipe in Returnal. I've been having a blast running through it, and since the aliens usually blast me, I've definitely tread the same ground more than a few times. But each run feels different, and anytime Celine gets a new ability, I want to go back to old biomes again and again to discover things I wasn't able to see the last time I was there. I absolutely encourage you to give Returnal a go and start discovering these things for yourself.
The fog has dispersed, and the energy signature is gone.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what Framework is doing, definitely hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you do. And if you want to see what we've already cooked up, hit that link on the far left. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.